So something was just announced by the White House that is going to have a ripple effect. And according to many, this could be a massively negative ripple effect for the entire United States. Now I'm going to address what's going on here, but again, this was just announced, so we do not have all the details. This is coming out of the White House. So keep in mind, they're keeping a lot of this information very secretive because they're still working through it. So just bear with me. I'm going to read this article, show you exactly what's happening, why this is potentially disturbing for millions and millions of Americans, and explain where we go from here. So all I ask is one thing, takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So first of all, you may have already heard me talk about some of this stuff, but what I'm going to tell you today is even more disturbing than what I talked about earlier on this week when I said that because of all the immigrants coming into the United States, or illegal immigrants coming into the United States, the federal government is trying to find ways to put these people in some type of shelter, whether it's a tent, whether it's an actual home, a hotel, doesn't matter, just put them into some shelter. Well, guess what? The White House is continuing to work on this. Here's what we know. According to CNN yesterday, they say the White House looks for federal spaces to house migrants amid pressure from cities. Now, I'm going to get into this article in just a moment, but the reason why I really want to touch on this is because this is what we have been pretty much saying from the beginning. That there are millions of people that are struggling because they don't have affordable housing. And there were multiple talks and discussions years ago, especially during the pandemic. Let's provide some of these federal buildings and let's make affordable housing. Guess what? It didn't happen. But now that we have the hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants into the United States, well, actually millions, it's now turning into a bigger crisis. And according to reports, the Biden administration has nowhere to go. Their hands are tied. Well, right now, according to a statement from the Congressional Budget Office, the federal government currently has roughly 8,000 unused properties. This was as of July 2023. Now, they're looking at using those properties to house illegal immigrants. Now, why? Why would they even consider this? Well, it's actually pretty simple. The reason why they have to do this is because they have these properties here. Governors are now saying that the federal government needs to step up and do something, because if they don't, then these states and these cities are going to have to use their own budget, their own money to house these people. Well, it's now starting to blow back in their face. And now the Biden administration says they have to do something if Congress will not pass a bill to provide more funding to the Biden administration and to the border. Well, this is their only option. Now, keep in mind, this was just announced. We don't have a lot of information yet, but the expectation is they are going to take schools. These are unused schools, okay? Or schools that are underperforming where those students can be pushed over to a different school. They're discussing this. Taking a school, an unused school, taking something like libraries that, again, are unused, churches that are unused, okay? They are looking at all ways to provide housing for illegal immigrants. I talked about this earlier this week, so if you were able to watch that video, thank you, okay? But in that video, I talked about how they were looking at using different campgrounds, okay? Campgrounds where someone could go pitch a tent and they can stay there for weeks or months on end. They're still discussing that. They're talking about any federal building. It could be an old post office, could be a storage facility, and use some funding to erect rooms, right, or put cots so then people can stay there. Guess what? That's going to cost the U.S. taxpayers more money. Because if we are not charging for these facilities, well, somebody has to pay for the utilities. That's water, all right? That's garbage. If we have to pay somebody to manage that facility, that's another cost. Well, and then we still have utilities like lights. That's expensive. Now, one thing I can tell you is that right now, the White House is continuing to respond because of all these concerns. And right now, the White House responded to growing migrant crisis in Chicago after 4 more buses are expected. Okay, again, this was from yesterday. This is a huge concern. The White House is trying to put more pressure on the cities. They're trying to put more pressure on the United States Congress, trying to put more pressure on Mexico. Right? It's turning into a problem. I want to show you this one as well. It says more Chicago suburbs vote to restrict unscheduled migrant bus drop-offs. Now, this is happening because Chicago has a city ordinance where you cannot drop off busloads of people at a specific time. Guess what? They're being dropped off in other suburbs. Well, there is a problem with this though, because what is happening is some companies are getting a lawsuit. Look at this. New York City is suing the Texas charter bus companies for $700 million. $700 million is what they're suing them for because they say that's the cost of caring for migrants. Okay? Now, I just want to put this out there. Mayor Eric Adams, New York City is a sanctuary city where people can go and they can feel safe. They're supposed to have the resources, the stuff for shelter, for food, healthcare, right? Well, what we hear is New York City, we hear Chicago, and we hear Denver are all struggling. So what does New York City do? They go and sue the bus company. You know what the bus company's going to do now? They're not going to go to New York City. So you know where they're going to drop off the illegal immigrants? Yeah, I don't know either. Nobody knows. They will just drop them off wherever because they can't do it in New York City or they risk another lawsuit. So this is where the Biden administration, they're deciding they want to really step up. They want to push cities to provide more for illegal immigrants. Well, here's what they're doing. Construction is underway on a new migrant intake center in downtown Chicago. Well, where's that money coming from? Well, it's coming from the city. The city is going to have to pay for it. The cities are paying for a lot of stuff at this time, especially up in the northern part of the country when right now they're expecting colder weather and potentially snow. Well, New York City, they're facing a winter storm this weekend as well, and more than 1,000 migrants are awaiting shelter at an East Village site. East Village, that's just one location. There's over 1,000 migrants awaiting shelter. Let me show you the picture again. Let me show you this picture right here. Do you see anybody in that picture that does not have a jacket on? No, because it is cold. Every single one of these people, pretty much, jacket, sweatshirt, has a hood on because it is cold. That's what we're expecting. Okay? Now, according to reports, the White House, they are planning it and pretty much prepping for a battle over the border. But here's the concern. It doesn't matter who the White House is negotiating with. It could be Democrats or Republicans. The problem at this time is they don't have a very good solution. They don't have a good solution to this problem. Because even though, cities can, say they're going to sue these bus companies for dropping off illegal immigrants, well, does it actually go anywhere? Maybe, maybe not. Governor Greg Abbott from Texas, he's not concerned because he's saying that it's odd that companies and the cities are going to sue him for sending them illegal immigrants when they said we would take the migrants. That's a problem. But again, I just wanted to fill you in on what's going on at this time because this was just announced just yesterday that the White House is looking at all locations. They're looking at all federal spaces and they want to figure out a way how to take the pressure off of cities. But here's the thing. If they use a federal building, they can take funding. They can take funding for that federal building because the federal government is responsible for that building. So if it costs more money, the federal government will pay that money. It's not going to need Congress to come out and issue more funding. Now, here's the other problem. It will cut into the government funding bill of fiscal year 2024. So if the White House comes out and says, yep, we found some buildings, we're going to take the pressure off of Chicago and New York, well, for one, it's going to be a little bit of a problem in Chicago because they don't have very many federal buildings in the area. But they can push people away from the city, house them in a federal building, but the problem is they're going to be further away from Chicago. In New York, they don't really have that issue. So we're going to see what happens moving forward. All I can tell you is I will be here every step of the way, and I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. Again, all I ask is two things. First, hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video. Second thing, click that subscribe button and tick that notification bell so you never miss an update. And I'll see you guys on the next one.